Alexander Titov is a Russia analyst and a lecturer at Queen's University, Belfast in the UK, and he joins us now live. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the program. Now, I want to get your analysis on the latest diplomatic talks that were held between Macron, Scholz, Macron, Zelensky, and of course, Macron and Putin. Do you see any breakthrough happening in the near future?
We don't know for sure. I think, judging by Macron's comments and reaction, he understands now that the old approach, which basically not moving anywhere forward on the Minsk, is no longer acceptable to Russia. The key question is the basic dilemma is that Ukraine doesn't want to implement Minsk because they don't like it. What to do about it? Whether they were Macron and Germany and more, specifically the United States, will be willing to put pressure on Ukraine to finally implement those agreements, which Ukraine doesn't like, and Russia wants them implemented anyway, or that's futile, and then we're moving to this next stage where everybody abandons diplomacy over Minsk and see what happens on the ground. Both options are possible. I'm very skeptical that Ukraine will ever agree to implement Minsk, to be honest.
Right, and Turkey is also playing a pivotal role of mediation here. Do you think Erdogan would be the ideal leader to bring both Putin and Zelensky to actually meet, because they haven't met yet, and to come to some sort of a solution, given that Turkey has good relations with both Ukraine and Russia?
Well, it's not a matter of good relations to bad relations. It's a fundamental issue that Ukraine simply does not want to implement the Minsk agreement. They think it brings in a Trojan horse inside Ukraine, gives Russia undue influence, gives a rallying point, institutionalizing rallying point for all the pro-Russian forces which are abundant in Ukraine but been kind of suppressed for the last 8 years. That thing is not going to go away. The key here is that whether Turkish president has any more power over that than French or the Germans, who's been in it for 8 years. I don't see that's changing anything. I think if Americans were to come and say, like, let's do the Minsk agreement and finally stop it, that might change. But I don't really see how Turkish president would be any different from the French or the German chancellor in that respect.
Right, and let's talk a bit about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. We've been seeing Biden in recent time, especially, constantly threaten Russia that it will completely stop operations of the gas pipeline if they don't stop what the West describes as Russian aggression towards Ukraine. But do you think that's something that Putin would be worried about enough to make him pull back?
Well, I think the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is an important issue, but it's not the only issue. I mean, Russia has been threatened with a whole range of sanctions in case it invades Ukraine, including financial sanctions, sovereign debt sanctions, high technology sanctions. So yeah, I think they're working on the assumption that if there are any sanctions happen, Nord Stream will be part of that. Interestingly, I think that America is bringing up Nord Stream. It's been against it for since its inception. Has been putting sanctions under it for a very long time. But the Germany wants that pipeline, and that's kind of the bottom line. Is that we know that Americans don't want it, and they would love to use any excuse to scrap it. But Germans and Europeans more generally, particularly France and Netherlands, actually quite happy for that to go ahead. So yeah, if there were full invasion, Nord Stream 2 probably wouldn't come in operation, but that would only be a small part of the much larger problem of Russia's relations with the West.
Right.
But I think this is one of the reasons why I think the kind of large-scale invasion was not going to happen anyway, because cost will be too severe for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Now, the buildup of Russian troops in Donbass is worrying for, of course, the Ukrainians, but also some of the Ukrainians that I've spoken to in Kiev say that they've been in war already since 2014. This isn't a new concept for them, and it's not like Ukraine doesn't have any military personnel on its side of the border in the case of an invasion. Do you think Biden's comments, which have been described as fear-mongering, affect Ukrainians at all?
Well, I think certainly the whole talk of the invasion coming from imminent invasion coming from Washington and London in particular. Ukrainians been trying to authorities been trying to play it down. Maybe one of the reasons is that they don't want to implement Minsk because they afraid that all this talk about imminent invasion is a way of putting extra pressure on them to implement Minsk, which they don't want to do. So, yeah, there is kind of discrepancy between perception of the imminent threat from Ukraine and from the United States and Britain. So, yeah, we will see. They've been at war, but the war they have suffered very humiliating defeats. In September 14 in Ilovaisk and in Baltsovo in February 2015. Since then, there's not kind of open up war. There were some kind of skirmishes, but not a full-scale invasion.
Right.
I think all the military analysts agree that if there's a full-scale invasion, Ukrainian military has no chance.
Okay.
So that's kind of why everybody's worried about it.
Okay, Alexander Titov, thank you so much for joining us here on the NewsHour and sharing that analysis with us.